Hi, Leon here, creator of LBX Stripper. Um, I'm just going to do a quick video demonstrating the new dynamic mode in LBX Stripper, which will be out imminently. Okay, so first up, dynamic mode is the new mode in Stripper, which basically aims to make creating strips and adding them to projects and using Stripper with existing projects much easier by automating the creation of or the adding of strips for existing plugins and things like that. So first off, dynamic mode works primarily, you just need one track. It uses one track and one strip on one track, and then it changes depending on internally depending on which track you select. So choose a track which you want to use as your dynamic track. So I've got this dynamic mode example track 1. So if I set it to that, it enters dynamic mode. You've got toolbars across the side and it tells you what track you're on. First off, we'll start with some pretty things. So as you know, I know as you use Reaper, you probably like making things, customizing things. So you can basically add backgrounds and all sorts to Stripper quite easily. Whether they're pretty or not, or they work, is a matter of taste, I guess. I shall settle on that one. And then you got some options, center the image or not. If you had a nice sort of logo or something in the middle of the image that you're using as a background image, then you might wish to use the center image button, or option, I should say. Anyway, back to dynamic mode. We're in dynamic mode, as you can see up there. If I click on another track, we go back to live mode, but it remembers the track that you've set up for dynamic mode as the dynamic mode track. So there we go. I'll hide that for now. Okay, so the interface, basically you got a global button that will only appear if you've got a global track set up, which is a track named __ global. I think that's what it is anyway. It's hidden on my system. And then back button takes you back to the previous track that you were on, which happened to be the mic track. So that lets you sort of jump between tracks. You can have another track on that previous track. Say it had a big template for MIDI editing or general Reaper control. Then you could put a button on that takes you to this dynamic mode, which is primarily for mixing. There's ways sort of to jump about quite easily without having to remember what track's what here. The next thing is that you've got these track, this plus button basically lets you create shortcuts to your favorite tracks in the project, or say your buses, or any particular tracks that you're working on, and it's pretty straightforward. Select the track in the mixer that you want to add. So dynamic mode example 1 plus, and it adds it in, and example 2 add. And I'll add the mic one, and as you can see the mic's getting audio input, so you can see it's got a little peak meter on it, which if you right click on the plus button you can set the color of the peak meter to be whatever you want so that it matches your theme. Okay, so enough about that. Actually no, if you want to move the order of these around, you can shift click and it moves the selected one to the position you've got it in. If the number of tracks that you've got is larger than the number that will fit on the toolbar at the bottom, then you've got these which I call the pages of tracks. And also if you hold down shift, you'll see it goes through the project tracks, and within dynamic mode. Remember, it's not actually changing the stripper internal track. That's always stuck whilst you're in dynamic mode. Unless you click on global or back buttons, it's always going to remain here, unless you go into the edit mode, which I'll come to shortly. Okay, so dynamic mode. Well, here I've got 2 tracks: dynamic mode example 1, dynamic mode example 2. On example 2, I've loaded the VLA. If I do a refresh there, the VLA 3A from Black Rooster Audio. I haven't created a strip for this plugin yet, but what you have here is a placeholder strip, which has a bypass button, an open GUI button, there we go, that's the GUI, and a new a cog icon, which is basically an edit or create the strip. So if I was to click on that, it gives you an option of loading a template. If you choose blank template, then I would advise you always putting a background in, but template A I've set up as a good starting point, certainly for my strips, and it you know, using this allows you to sort of keep a common theme as well. You can create as many templates as you want. If you open up the strip browser, they will be found in the LBX templates folder. I only have the one at the moment. Clicking on that and then clicking on template A, what it does is, if it doesn't already exist, it creates a track called __LBX edit. It copies the appropriate plugin from the dynamic mode track into this edit track, and switches you into edit mode. And as you can see, it's loaded up the template that I've asked it to load, which is populated with simply an open GUI button and a bypass button, or activate plugin button. Down on the left hand side, this is all the same. It's been in Stripper since day one pretty much. You've got your FX parameters that you can drag in. So for this, well, actually, in the new edit mode, which is in Stripper, I've fixed the control browser here to the right hand side, where I think it works much nicer. You can expand it so you can see more controls options, but it's always open, whereas before it used to appear in the middle of the screen and then it would vanish when you select something. Here it's always visible, which is more useful when editing. So here I've created, you've got your folders of different controls, so all controls, just knobs, just sliders, and all the different options, most of them provided by Timble Zoom, which you can find a shortcut on the main Stripper thread in the first post to download all of these. So favorite, I'm going to select my favorite knob, which is also another Timble Zoom one, and then I'm going to drag in the peak reduction and gain. I've chosen this plugin because it shouldn't take too long to create something with it, because there's not too much, not too many parameters to worry about. So there you go, I've dragged them in. They're both knob sliders because I've chosen a knob type. Another thing about the new control browser is that when you click on a knob type, it should drag in the next thing as a knob slider. If I, for instance, choose a button type and then drag in any parameter, it will automatically set that to button type. So that sort of saves a few clicks, which is always nice. And then I'm just gonna make the strip pretty, like I say, it's a really simple one. Shouldn't take long. Oh, you got a center button down there which centers everything so you can edit it easier. The only thing is sometimes that pops up over what you're fiddling with, but that's alright. So there we go, pretty much nearly done. Let's just add a label, which I shall say VLA 3A, just so I know what this strip is. Make it bigger, put it somewhere around there, change the color, and then change the color of the background. Let's make it, I don't know, whatever. There you go, nice sort of pinky purpley color. I've created what my strip wants to look like. It's really quick, nothing to it really. I'm happy with that. Might be a bit big, I can fiddle with it, but anyway, I want to test it out. So in the new edit mode, when you're in dynamic mode and you've gone into edit mode, you can click on that and you go into test mode. So this is only, it isn't affecting your actual project that you're working in. It's only affecting the edit tracks copy of the plugin. So I can check that the peak reduction works, the mode switch works, and likewise the gain works, and I can reset them to defaults quite easily. So that appears to be working okay, so I'm happy with that. So now obviously these are fairly obvious what these buttons should do. Discard means you basically chuck away what you've done, any changes you've made or whatever. And the save button means I'm happy with that, I want to save it. Now if you hit the save button, if there's only one plugin that is part of this strip, and then there should always be at least one plugin, so you may need to add if you try and save a strip that doesn't have any plugins in it, say you've deleted the plugin or in the edit mode, or there's another way of getting into edit mode by pressing F in dynamic mode, which previously just took you into the FX edit mode. Well, now it will take you, it will do the same process as if you've edited the strip, but it won't have any plugins on the track, and you can just create the strip from blank if you were just using, say, track controls or actions controls or anything like that. But the way dynamic mode works is it needs a plugin in order to know that the strip exists for that track. So if you hit save and there's no plugin here, it will ask if you want to add a dummy plugin, and it will name that dummy plugin after the strip name that you call it. So that's pretty straightforward. Now if you've only got the one plugin there, then it will associate that one plugin with this strip that you've just saved. So then whenever that plugin appears in a track list, it will automatically load this strip for that plugin. Multiple plugins work differently. They won't automatically load a strip, but you can still drag them in from the strip browser, and they shall remain there as multiple plugin strips. There's currently no code that I've created that will deal with working out if it needs to insert multiple plugins. That's still a manual process, but you can still do it even if the plugins are already there. Anyway, back to this. So I'm happy with that, so I'm going to hit save. I'm going to leave the name the same, hit OK, and it saved it. I then hit the refresh button here, and it's loaded it in. And just to prove that this is the default strip for that plugin, I'm going to duplicate the plugin on the track, and it's loaded another one in. So that's really easy. Obviously, if you've got lots of plugins on a track which you haven't previously created strips for, you get that default black one. So let's just pick something random, SciQ, Sound Toys. You get that again. So again, if I want to create one for that, I would then click the cogs cog icon on it. Yeah, that's pretty much, that's pretty straightforward. I can go into the strip browser. I'll show you what happens. Well, I can show you what happens when I reorder things here. I've just moved that VLA underneath there just to prove that it's the right one. I can move it up there. So you can reorder stuff really easily in dynamic mode. You've also got multiple. This spiral distort is a multiple plugin strip that I created, containing a purist gain either side of spiral, and then a macro control to basically, if I want to, well, I'll put them the right way around. If I want to increase the gain into the spiral plugin so that you get more distortion, and then but it kind of has an inverse gain afterwards, which keeps the level round about the same. Works really nicely. And then on off, basically the bypass button bypasses all three plugins in that one. Again, that's a macro control tied to all three plugins. The only thing about macro controls at the moment is that if it decides it's got to refresh, and there's also an auto refresh option which I keep active, that's so that when you add effects and things to the track, it automatically updates. You don't have to keep hitting refresh to do the update. So just keep that ticked all the time. Yeah, so when you hit refresh and you've got a macro button, it does reset the macro button to default, which is a bit annoying, and I will try and come up with a way of fixing that, but it's it's not the end of the world at the moment. If you reorder it, you can move that spiral distort anywhere in the chain. You'll notice that all the plugins stick with it. Now it's possible that you might try and reorder these here. Say I want to put that purist gain after the spiral. Well, it won't like it. It needs the plugins in the correct order that the strip was created in. And actually there's a tiny little bug where it sometimes jumps over a plugin when it replaces it, when it resorts it. I'll try and sort that out, but hitting refresh puts it back where it should be. So yeah, as long as you don't want to reorder the plugins that are within a particular strip, then everything should stay happy. Of course, if you do and you're not using macro controls across the multiple plugins, they're just sort of and you can have them individual. You could always just keep them individually. So that's so I can also, I've got other these are all strips I've created. I've got a load in here, so I want to add a goal foss in there. It's really easy. So I've got supercharger. There we go. So we've got that, and if I load any outside, soothe for instance, and there you go, it's loaded the soothe. And if I move soothe up there, it's moved soothe there. If I put the psych, I haven't got psych here at the moment. If I put let's say the supercharger to the top, and supercharger's gone to the top. So that's all with the auto update. If you didn't have the auto refresh, if you didn't have the auto refresh ticked, then it wouldn't automatically move them. You'd have to you'd have to hit the refresh and it would move them for you. So that's that. Then as in the old mix mode, which still exists, you can still access it, as the live mode has always been there, is always the same. So Stripper, for those that don't want to use this new mode, is exactly the same, just don't activate the dynamic mode option. But you've got different mix mode options. So you've got horizontal layout, so you got that. If you shift and mouse wheel over there, you can make it bigger and smaller, the little overlay plugin map. So that's shift and backslash switches between those two modes as well. And then you can get into the sort of fun options here, which I've created. So you've got you've got a pop-up mode. So if I double click on that, it's popped it out, and I can then put it anywhere on the screen. But now up here in the little plugin map, you can just click on other ones and it will put them on the screen, and you can sort of lay them out however you want. The fun thing is it remembers all of that. If you want to go back to the stack mode, just hit backslash, we'll switch between them. There's also another option if you were to go, you've got fade alpha. So say I still want to see the stack underneath, you can set the alpha for it and it's there. And then I want to, you can still, if you've got an option to disable that stack so that you can't actually click on anything by accident, move it. So if I do that, and then choose a plugin that's not floated, you can't do anything to it. But likewise, if I uncheck that, I can now affect that one, and also double click there to bring it up. So there's that option. There's also, whoops, didn't mean to do that. There's also pop-up only mode and single pop-up only mode. So there's the single mode. If you activate that and you get one to pop up, and then I want that one to pop up, it will actually replace the other one that's popped up. Probably works best if you set the fade alpha to 0, and then this becomes a mode where you can just literally just flick through whatever plugin you want to see. But you can only see one at a time with single pop-up only mode. You've got standard pop-up only mode, which allows there to be nothing on the screen at all. Normally, if you didn't have that ticked and you'd pop it up, it's there, but as soon as you hide it, the stack comes back. If you set it to pop-up only mode, you can actually, if you hide it, you never see the stack. Pop-up only mode literally hides the stack permanently. It's just another way of using it as a quick access to different plugins on the track. And you know, like I say, if I go to a different track, if I load some plugins onto this track, something that I've got or created, some stuff also bass room should exist. Not sure whether that's not automatically, I can refresh it. Oh no, it is there. Oh yeah, because I'm in pop-up only mode. Sorry, that confused me for a second. If that wasn't on pop-up only mode and the stack existed, that would have automatically appeared. Likewise, if I go, I've got a few of these now. So supercharger, and there you go. It appears automatically. So basically, your strips will you know, create as long as you've got strips existing, then they'll create automatically. If not, you get a list of the placeholders so you can create strips easily, or simply enable, disable, and open the GUIs from the standard placeholder one. So if I you've got that's for stack mode. So if I go back to the stack and then I can align them all on the left if you prefer that. If they're all the same width, then that works can work quite nicely because it keeps them centered. But well, anyway, it's another layout mode. Likewise, if you're it aligns them to the top if you're in this mode rather than centered to each other. Where it puts them in the middle. So that's yeah, that's more or less the new dynamic mode. Shows you most of the options I think I've been through. you could, yeah, say, I haven't covered this, but if you shift and right click on there, there's an option to edit the strip. So you click edit strip, pulls everything that it needs to into this edit mode track here. You can edit it how you want. Again, hit save, and it will then save your changes for that strip, associate it with the plugin, etc. And when you get back here, you just have to hit refresh and it would load the new version for you. So that all works nicely. Likewise, in the strip browser, say you haven't got it in the you haven't got it in the project, but you still want to edit a particular strip. So I've got this imperial delay one. I can shift right click on that and edit, and then I can edit it again, save it, whatever. Go back here, and then when I next choose to use that plugin in the chain, I can just drag it in and it will use the edited version. So I think I've covered most things now. I should probably stop rambling on, but I hope those that use Stripper like it. I find it really useful. A few people that have been beta testing for me, they sort of requested the dynamic mode functionality, or they requested a particular functionality. I came up with this. I think they like it. So yeah, it's been a lot of work. It's been good fun. Some of it's pretty complex behind the scenes, but yeah, and it's not entirely finished. I've got so many plans. It's just not enough time to do everything at the moment. So that will be done in the future, hopefully. I'll add new stuff to it, but it's all down to how much time I've got and working on other scripts as well. But anyway, thanks for watching. I hope when I release this in the next day or two, I hope you like it. Cheers, Em.